Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, the civil conflict in Sudan sees violence grip the capital Khartoum, but also the region of Darfur, where the rebel forces are challenging the military government are based. Once they were called the Janjaweed Militia, now they're called the RSF, or Rapid Support Forces, led by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo. The army is led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Two rivals tearing the country apart since April the 15th. Over 10,000 lives have been lost, at least millions displaced by the violence. Western Darfur has been the scene of extreme violence and ethnic cleansing for the past 20 years. Most recently, the population of Masalit has been targeted by the RSF. Elodie Kuzan is our reporter. Elodie, you're our eyes and ears on the ground. Why have civilians been targeted while at the moment there's little combat going on between the warring sides?
Because there's an ethnic cleansing campaign. To better understand what's happening, you need to go back to the very start of the war in Darfur, in 2003. At the time, dictator Omar al-Bashir had ordered an intimidation campaign with mass murders and rapes against 3 ethnic groups of African origin in Darfur. These operations were carried out by mainly Arab militias and the Sudanese army. So when war broke out between the army and the Rapid Support Forces in April, the RSF started carrying out massacres against civilians again. That means against men, women and children.
Elodie, thank you very much indeed. Let's take a look then at Elodie's report.
Umar, can you lift his leg?
This man has an open femur fracture. He was attacked by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces in his home in West Darfur, where the worst massacres of the war are taking place.
Pus isn't coming out today.
And on the other side?
Let's see. There's more blood on this side.
I was shot in El Janina. Luckily, the Red Cross came to collect the bodies and found me there. I spent several days among the bodies without food or water.
He insists he wasn't fighting. He's one of many civilians to have been wounded.
All the patients we receive are suffering from gunshot fractures, which have become infected. Most of them come 2 or 3 weeks after their injuries, which complicates things.
Nema and her sister were shot in the elbow and thigh. Their father was killed.
Nema was the youngest. She's 5 years old. There are also children who are 7, 8, 16, 14 years old. There are men, there are women, there are little ones. It seems the whole community has been targeted.
These civilians weren't victims of the conflict between the RSF and the army. Many of them were targeted outside war zones because of their ethnicity. They're part of the Masalit tribe, an African ethnic group in Darfur that has been persecuted since 2003. The Arab groups responsible for these crimes document their massacres in the town of El Janina.
كده ده الشارع من هنا وانت ماشي على بنك الخرطوم ديل هم الكلاب القدور
الله أكبر الله أكبر
دار مساجد
الله أكبر
ما في دار مساجد ثاني دار عرب بس
عرب ده ما دايرين لون ده.
The Arabs' aim is to replace the Masalit ethnic group with Arab groups. They want to eliminate black Africans. It's terrible. It's a crime against humanity. In Islam, human beings are the most important. Not even animals can be treated the way they treat people.
Only 2 members of Nema's family were unharmed. the RSF and their allies attacked the IDP camp where she was living. Her mother had to carry the 2 wounded sisters for 30 kilometers before reaching the Chadian border. The journey was dangerous. Militiamen were everywhere, as these videos show.
On the journey, we came across many wounded people who were lying on the ground. They were asking for help, but nobody stopped. Everyone was trying to escape and just survive. We saw so many dead people. They searched us everywhere. They took any money we had, even if we hid it against our chests. They took everything from us.
The refugees are searched, but they're also assaulted and raped. Nobody is safe, whether they're in their homes or on their escape journeys. More than 450,000 people have crossed the border from Sudan into Chad. Most of them fled between April and June, during the first wave of massacres. Those who aren't in hospital are living in squalid conditions in cramped camps.
From time to time, trucks come to deliver water. Sometimes there's some in these pipes, but most of the time there's not enough.
Is it different from your place?
We have running water at home. Wells if we need them, reservoirs. Here, there's nothing but suffering.
Most of those who collect water at this supply point are women and children. They represent 85% of the refugees. Very few men are of Ahmed's age.
Most of them were killed. All these children you see are orphans. Their fathers were killed.
Ahmed was lucky to have made it to Chad. He left Al Janina with a group of friends, but they were spotted by militiamen and arrested. Some of what happened next was filmed. Ahmed is visible in this video. He's wearing the same shirt.
يعني كل نفرين أو كل 3 نفر بيشيلوا عدد معين. يعني هناك في نفس الحتة ده قتلوا دي 10 نفر.
They formed groups of 2 or 3 guards and took prisoners. By this point, they had killed 10 people. They took the others away in small groups. 2 men took us to the west of the village. We saw a herd of cows and ran towards them to hide. They shot and killed 3 of us, and 2 of us survived. The people we left behind, they're either dead or prisoners now.
في عزوة الصغيرة الناس اللي خليناهم ورا ديل معناها كلهم صفوهم يعني كده صفوهم لو ما صفوهم معناها شنو برضه ممكن يكونوا أسرى موجودين ده الهازل.
Civilians were targeted and prisoners executed. These are war crimes and crimes against humanity. Numerous videos document the atrocities. The militiamen also film the rapes they commit, images we will not show. A group of men in uniform attacked Sadia's house. She says they were members of the Rapid Support Forces.
They came to my house and threatened me and my aunts. They said, "We've killed 4 of your husband's friends. Where is he?" And they threatened me. If I didn't answer, they were going to kill me like the others.
Sadia's husband is a well-known Masalit activist. She didn't know where he was, so the men started beating her and she fell to the ground.
I tried to get up, but they stepped on my hands. They used their turbans to gag me because I was screaming and crying very loudly. There were 3 of them. They raped me. I remember that 2 of them raped me. Then they hit me on the head with their guns, and I fainted. When I woke up, I was alone.
Exactions peaked in mid-June 2023. On the 14th, Khamis Abakar, a former rebel leader and Masalit who had become governor of West Darfur, was assassinated. This man was one of his advisors.
قوة من قوات الدعم السريع أنه أخذت جنرال خميس عبد الله بكر مباشرة إلى مقر.
They took him to the RSF headquarters, as you can see. The head of the RSF appears in these images.
A few hours later, the militiamen filmed another video. It shows young men mutilating Khamis Abakar's body.
عشان كده إنه لو تم القتل يعني خميس بكر لو حاسبنا كل الأرض.
They killed him to remove his influence. He hadn't done anything wrong. They killed him because he was Masalit, and they were afraid that that would mean he would try to rule the other ethnic groups.
Khamis Abakar led a coalition of former rebels who agreed to lay down their arms after the fall of dictator Omar al-Bashir. Since the beginning of the conflict, rebel groups have been fighting alongside the army. And despite their leader having been assassinated, they are still hopeful they can protect the trapped population. This advisor wants to introduce us to one of the group's leaders, who recently arrived in Chad.
We came here because we're running out of ammunition. But we have a plan to come back. We have not abandoned West Darfur to the RSF.
At the time, Badawi seemed to have faith. But a few days after our meeting, the RSF defeated the rebels. The paramilitaries then wandered around this military hospital, surrounded by the wounded and dead soldiers. Hundreds of civilians were also killed. It's impossible for most refugees to imagine ever returning to Sudan. And many now fear that camps in Chad could also be under attack. We meet Ahmed again. He's spotted several RSF leaders at the market.
Some of the Rapid Support Force's top commanders have been here in Adre, and many of us have seen them. We're on edge when they're here. How can they get into this country? There's nothing I can do. I'm not at home, I'm a refugee, so there's nothing I can do.
The situation on the other side of the border is getting worse. The army has now withdrawn from most of Darfur. Between 2003 and 2013, at least 300,000 people were killed, according to the UN. And the attacks against the Masalit community in El Janina are yet another step in the massacres.
Our reporter Elodie Cousin is still with us. Elodie, thank you for that insight into what is happening in Sudan. Tell us about the difficulties that you had as a reporter getting to this story.
It was very difficult. We have been to Darfur and to El Janina many times since 2020. So when the war started, we thought we could rely on the people we knew in the civil society to get information. But we realized that all the people we had previously interviewed for France 24 had been massacred. So that's why we went to Chad, on the border with Sudan, to meet refugees who have fled Darfur. They are the only witnesses who can recount what is happening there. The UN and the EU have even sent observers to meet these refugees because they consider their witness accounts are fundamental. Let's have a listen to the prefect of this region right on the border.
Yes, it's genocide. When you have a militia that is targeting and massacring a whole population over 2 or 3 months, up until today, first intellectuals, then traditional leaders, and then shopkeepers. You don't think that's a genocide? Of course what's going on is a genocide.
Colonel Sebe there, the prefect. Elodie's still with us. Elodie, is there any sign that the violence is going to end at some time soon?
It's very difficult to say. We could be heading to a Libya-style scenario, with a country cut in two. Over the past few weeks, the RSF forces have managed to take 3 out of the 5 main towns in Darfur. The army is stepping aside, and the inhabitants can only rely on themselves. There's no help coming their way, and the future for them is very uncertain.
Elodie Kouzan, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for watching too. You can see the report again via our website, france24.com. And of course, we continue to watch all developments in Sudan and across Africa in our news, magazines and special programs. That's it for this edition. Stay with us.